Hello, welcome to Red Pills and Coffee, episode 5.
Hello, world.
This is Jez.
Hello,
I'm
world.
Chris. This is a podcast we do every few months where we talk about lots of different things, interesting things, really. So today in this podcast, we're going to be talking about politics in the broadest sense of the word. We're going to get deep into this and just talk about our own political beliefs, our own political aspirations, or not aspirations. No, I don't really have particular desires to be a politician, but our own political beliefs, what we think politics is, what we think the usefulness of politics, I suppose, as well, and also just probing what politics has been historically and is now.
It's a whole ballpark, innit? Yeah, it's a whole ballpark. Politics.
So I think probably if we just do this first bit, if we just talk about what our own political beliefs are, I can start or you can start, Jez. It's up to you.
Yeah, I don't mind, mate. Either way, do you know what I mean? I could open it. I mean, politics. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because when you're a kid, it doesn't exist in my eyes. When I was a kid, it didn't really exist. Do you know what I mean? Well, obviously it was on TV and stuff like that, but I didn't even know. When you're about 5 to 10, you have no idea why them people are in Houses of Commons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then when you start watching Hollywood movies,
well, you'd have to be quite a dweeby 10-year-old to be interested in the Houses of Parliament.
Could you imagine?
I
know. It'd be a bit, I'm sure, even though I bet there are people who, because there's a channel which is just devoted to watching Houses of Commons all day.
And stuff. BBC Parliament, isn't it? Politics.
Is it BBC Parliament? Yeah.
I do occasionally tune into that sometimes, but I can only usually last
tune
about
in and out.
10 or 15
but that's
minutes.
The thing, isn't it? That's the key phrase. Isn't
I think this is a phrase that occurs in the personal is political. So usually I find that but it's not just this, but I'm kind of starting to see beyond this way of thinking now. But personal is political, which means that things that personally affect you, you will get if you get you have a political stake in them, basically. So, for example, for me, I've got my bipolar, so I try and raise awareness around mental health and how bad the government welfare reforms have been and things like this. So for me, I try most of that. I mean, if I do any activism, it's just digital activism, really, just raising awareness on Twitter. And I wish I could do more sometimes. If we want to talk about our own past, we have we've been active somewhat politically in terms of protests and stuff, haven't we? So that's.
Oh yeah, we've got some stories. Yeah.
well, we can talk about that later, but I'll define my beliefs then, I guess, straight. So, because it sounds like you're saying that basically you. This is common for a lot of people our age, and you're a bit younger, but you know what I mean, our kind of generation, alienated from politics, alienated from the political process. Yeah. Jeremy Corbyn for me seems to be the only real alternative, but then even then he's sometimes being a bit. Sometimes I feel he's being a bit too weak on some things, but I still like him. I voted for him for the start.
I saw one clip of him the other day on Facebook. Funny enough, and it was just him. It was just him, kind of. I think a Tory. One of them really got under his skin. It was basically about social care and about how people taking time off work.
Yeah.
What was it like? It was about obviously about people who take time off work to look after people who were ill, vulnerable, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think some Tory shouted across the room and did something to get under his skin, and he just he kind of went off on one, but he didn't. He kept it political, saying he just stated facts, but he was you could see in his face.
He's angry.
He was, I was bloody.
I think if you've seen.
So was mine actually, because it was
Have you seen that anti-war speech he did against Iraq? Actually, the no war in Iraq.
I've seen it. No.
I'll stick that on now, just as a. I don't know if
I haven't heard it.
Will you be able to watch it though? Actually, I'll have to send it on. I'll have to send you the link quickly.
Oh yeah, I can watch it later, but.
I I don't know if the audio will come through. I'll have to send you the link on the messenger or something.
That's alright.
It don't matter.
Still haven't.
We'll just keep this content, I suppose. But yeah, Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, well, because for myself, I'm a Labour Party member, so I'm a member of the Labour Party.
You're an actual member.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not very involved.
Do you get like a Christmas card each year from the Labour Party? Apparently they do that.
You get like well, I don't know actually. I mean, because I'm not in my local Labour Party involved in that level at the minute. I mean, I'm very kind of like. I mean, two kinds of mode because I'm exploring anarchist theory, so I've got this.
Oh right,
Some other anarchist theory, some kind of probing what anarchism. I've just started a blog actually called Fused Left, which is about that.
Is it? It's funny you say that, because I'm staring at an anarchy sign now. It's just funny you say that because I was looking at it and you said that and I thought, oh, that's interesting.
Well, I mean, anarchism is
it's a very common symbol, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, people
it's everywhere. It's
yeah.
everywhere.
People often think that anarchy is all about smashing things up, complete chaos, and
that's kind of what I think it is because I haven't really gone into the roots of it.
Well, I mean, this book by Daniel Guerin, which I'm still flicking in and out. I've only read some of it, but basically, anarchism is a social theory. Really, I mean, it's a theory of how society being run by people for themselves. It's a bit. I mean, it does relate to communist theory on one level, but there's a lot of splintering off in the 20th century, basically. So, anarchism is more of a DIY philosophy, basically, around doing politics, communities doing politics for themselves, direct action, and communities coming together. On one level, it means basically workers taking ownership of their own environments, their own working environments, and
a bit like altruism.
Yeah.
Looking out for yourself.
Before no.
State and,
yeah. Because I mean, anarchism means no government, basically, no government structure, no state.
Yeah.
Because the state, when you look at it historically, the state arguably creates, war, looking for resource, nationalism, blah blah blah. That would be the critique of the state. Now the other counter argument to that would be that people need protecting against threats, and we need a state that exists because if you have no state, a common phrase actually in anarchism is "no gods, no masters," which means no hierarchy, and no religious orthodoxy, and that's part of it. Anarchism is a broad church as well, but that's part of it as well, is that no kind of hierarchy in any sense. I mean, obviously you can be religious, be an anarchist. The whole part of the point of anarchy is there is no hard and fast rules. That's the beauty of it as a political framework, is that it's basically about creating new alternatives. It's not about
alternatives rather than just going on the same foundations of past. I can see.
I mean, anarchism there's many different flavors of it as well. So you've got anarcho-syndicalism, anarcho-communism, which is the more the hard left version. Well, there's no point getting into the debate because we'll be here but then anarcho-capitalism, which I don't really understand how it works still, because it kind of sounds like a contradiction to me, but it is one that exists. But basically, I mean, at the minute I'm trying to, with some of the Fused Left blogs posts I'm doing, I'm trying to figure out a way that you can create a new theory. I've come up with this idea called techno-mutualism, actually, which is essentially kind of an idea about sharing. Basically, it's a kind of there's a thing called crypto anarchism, which is basically cryptocurrency and all that.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of trying to apply thoughts from that manifesto, which was a long time ago now. No, 80s. Actually, not that long, 80s or something. But trying to basically come up with a new idea of how we as humanity can save the planet for a start, have more ecological kind of support the ecology of the planet, because if the planet dies, we die.
Yeah, we die. Yeah, that's the Earth stood still. Quote, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
And I'm trying to change things in myself as well. I'm not perfect. I'm still I'm still like, I'm doing recycling pretty well, but like a lot of the time I make mistakes. I'm
Sure.
I've been trying to be a vegetarian or trying to go towards veganism, but like I ate chicken. I ate some chicken like the other day because I've just I'm kind of failing at that at the minute. But I've been doing vegetarianism pretty well for like the last few weeks, but then I slipped recently. But all that aside, that's kind of my own personal thing. So obviously in anarchism as well, you've got like, because obviously if you look at how socialist societies have been implemented in the past, what tends to happen historically is that you get, at first it's all good, you have the revolution, the people take control of the power, and you usually have like a few leaders. But then often what happens, if you look at especially the Soviet Union, is that you get like Stalin, for example, he was a violent kind of like thug really, and he kind of took control of after Lenin died in the Soviet Union, and his paranoia just consumed that entire socialist system really, and became very authoritarian in industrialization, forcing industrialization, forced collectivism. A lot of anarchists actually, and like real theoretical thinkers, got sent off to Siberia. You know what I mean? It's like,
did they?
Yeah. When political dissidents or people who had different political thought to the prevailing Stalinist. There's show trials and everything. It was terrible, and it's like
intense, isn't it? Yeah, that's intense.
But like I don't know why I've gone down that particularly dark rabbit hole, but we might as well if we're going to explore this thing. And I think the left often has to face that these things have happened in the past, so that it does not repeat the mistakes of the past. Basically, is what I'm saying. Because I'd say I am left wing. I believe in progressive ideals, human rights. I believe in socialist economies, being trying to experiment with socialist economies to get them so that we can provide for more people. Really, there's Jeremy Corbyn himself is a democratic socialist. I think he describes himself as that. The Labour Party is now described as a democratic socialist party. So democratic socialism is like with Bernie Sanders as well. It's not like a top-down form of socialism. It's a bottom-up. So it's created by the people. The people have a stake in it. It's not that
because in the old, I say the old times, but it was always that. It was kind of like the workers, the slaves would build the foundation of the pyramids, apparently, and then the emperors and pharaohs would reap the benefits. And
Marxism, like in terms of a theory, it's changed now. The kind of how the conditions have changed, so that obviously, you had emperors and slaves. Then you had capitalist class and proletariat, which means workers really. And then now I think it's more kind of like, you've got you're kind of super rich, and then you've got everybody else. That's how I feel it's gone now. So we've got the 1%, as it's commonly called now, is like you've got an elite of super rich who own media, own corporations. They have so much wealth that they have the power to do whatever they want with that. That has to be addressed, as in wealth inequality and all the rest of it. Because I'll tell you what, this is honestly chilling, but if wealth, when you have economic instability in terms of mass unemployment and massive gaps in wealth, that creates conditions for extremism often to come in, whether it be fascism, and like it happened with Mussolini or Hitler or whoever, or any of the other bastards like Franco or whatever. Or you get also on the left side, you can get revolution can be a really positive force, but also when it goes and turns in on itself, like it does with the USSR as the easiest example of that, it becomes cannibalistic, and it becomes very, it comes in its own way authoritarian, and essentially if not fascist, but it becomes authoritarian and fucking horrible, like with Stalin and show trials and blah blah. It becomes all very cannibalistic.
What was the catalyst to that? What changed? Do you know what I mean? What caused it to go?
In terms of like Stalin, Stalin. Well, he had a power struggle with Trotsky. Trotsky was a leading candidate with the party for taking control of the USSR. They had a power struggle. I can't remember exactly why, but Stalin, I think, was a bit more probably underhanded, I guess, with his way of winning that competition. Trotsky got out of there because he became an international revolutionary, and then just you probably know the story of Trotsky. He ended up with an ice pick in his head on Stalin's orders. He got assassinated. He got politically assassinated by Stalin, basically.
Bloody hell.
He was, and then obviously Stalin, I guess, wanted to force industrialization so they could create this, socialist utopia that they had in mind, and but that involved a lot of, forcing labour, and there was like conditions weren't great because they had a civil war with the whites and the reds. So the Reds were the communist forces, which were led actually by Trotsky. He was the leader of the Red Army for a while, and then you had the Whites, who were the counter-revolutionary forces, basically on the side of the Tsar. And they clashed. They had a war. The Reds eventually won. They pulled themselves out of the First World War because during this time the First World War was also happening. So Russia pulled themselves out of the First World War because, it just wasn't. They thought it was a pointless war. I guess I don't know. I don't know historically why, but and then why did Stalin get in power? I guess because he just curried favour with a lot of his friends, who then eventually ended up getting assassinated or killed by him as well. It's a really bloody history. It's not. It's fucking horrible, man. The guy was a complete paranoid nutcase. Like, he comes from a very violent. He came from Georgia. He was like a bit of a hoodlum. It's interesting actually if you compare Trotsky's background and
their upbringings, because I never really take it into consideration.
Well, Stalin was from Georgia, and I think he's from quite a rural background actually.
Really?
He was quite intelligent, but also a bit of a violent upstart, I guess, in some respects. Trotsky, I think, came from quite a middle-class Jewish background. His Jewishness actually got used against him quite a lot. Like, there's quite a lot of anti-Semitic attacks against him. Yeah, which is, I hate anti-Semitism. Obviously people can get anti-Semitics or can be accused of anti-Semitism sometimes with, the Israel-Palestine situation. That is a complicated one, obviously. But, occasionally, it's been a thing actually in the Labour movement recently where there's been a lot of this anti-Semitism accusations and such going around. There are. I don't know that much about Zionism, but Zionism is more of a political. It's nothing to do with Judaism as a belief system, but it's basically a political belief of some sort. Because Israel, Palestine. Can you remember that time actually when we were on that? What was that thing where you chat roulette? And we ended up talking to some people in, I don't know if it was Palestine or...
They were from Israel.
Yeah.
And I think I was a little bit drunk and we were sitting in the kitchen. Yeah. And I was saying what do you think about Palestine and stuff like that? And stuff like that. I remember it just getting really heated, and I just kind of thought, that probably says it all, really. Because it was a bit awkward and a bit heated.
That situation, it's very... basically, there has to be a way to peace there, because it's just a back and forth. It's just people poof, 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 poof. It's just like the same old thing that's happened across time. You have these kind of... you have these walls being built up by humanity, and then people, it's a lot of revenge killing. You can imagine how bad it would be if
It's always. I don't want to say it's always very primitively based, because it's a bit. I don't want to say that because it's a bit insulting to the people that have died because of this conflict.
Yeah, but I know what you mean though. It's primitive.
The fact is, it's land, isn't it? And you're like, what the fuck? It's like they're just trying to. I don't want to say they're trying to. Well, I've seen a timeline of how the geographical area has changed from it being primarily Palestine's land to very much is now, Israel's. And so I've seen how that's changed. I can see. I mean, the origins of it is just. I think even the origins of it is based in bloodshed because it sprouted from World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the fact is that is all that's been birthed from. So it's almost like two wrongs don't make a right, I guess. I don't know.
Well, yeah, so quite. I mean, it's
yeah.
And that's it. I mean, it's just it's people. Humanity needs to get over the concept, I suppose, of just like an eye for an eye, because like as Gandhi said, an eye for an eye makes the world blind. And he was actually quite a socialist thinker as well. If you look back at some of his, I read them many years ago now, but part of his philosophy was that if we keep on just, hurting each other, hating each other, then where does it lead? It just leads to this, like fighting over patches of land. And where does that the logical conclusion of that is, where does that lead? Like things like the First World War, where we're just like fighting over meaningless. It's
almost like, I don't want to say, is it in our nature, or is it just part of our
I think
programming?
Violence is in our nature, but we can overcome that kind of programming.
Yeah.
We can overcome that desire to hurt other people, because like there is, I mean that's relating this to Orwell, it's like. In 1984, imagine a picture of the future. What's a picture of the future? A foot stamping on a human face forever. That is within all of us. We have this desire within all of us on some level to crush other people, because you get a sense of power from that, which is horrible. It's not a nice thing to face, but human beings get a sense of power, especially if you're a massive fascist as well. You get a sense of power from stamping and violently oppressing other people, because it's something primal that exists within humanity. It's like it goes back to being apes, I guess, in a way. Like that kind of divide, kind of like territorial fighting. Yeah,
fighting for the banana, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to that as well. Like where all these conflicts source from. It's basically resources, unfortunately. So yeah, man, it's just like I don't know. I'm gonna have a cig break actually. But what I might do actually, do you remember the Occupy Democracy Day? I'll play that video on here, and I'll be back in 5 minutes. The one on your channel.
Yeah, man. We do like part 2. Yeah.
Then we can chat about that, because that was a really weird day for me. Obviously, I was going through a very strange episode.
We'll break that down. That day. And stuff like that, and other times we masqueraded around political areas.
Cool. I'm going to come back in 5 minutes. I'm just going to play this, and then we'll carry on with our chat. It's been good so far.
Yeah, man. Good.
Cool.
Alright, mate. I'll catch you in a bit.
Yeah.
We have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical. Our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite.
Occupy democracy! Occupy democracy!
Get people involved with voting!
Occupy democracy! Come and join the party! Occupy democracy! Come and join the party! The more the merrier! We love you all! Even you two over there! If you take your uniform off.
Occupy democracy, bite the ballot, about to do a presentation and talk. Bite the ballot.
Bite the ballot, bite the ballot, occupy democracy! Come on forward! You can see I love the attention, but it's not about me. Come to occupy democracy!
Fuck the system! Who's actually going to start doing it? Michael? Michael? Right. Who's going to start the bite the ballot? Mike.
You're coming even closer.
Alright. Who can tell me in one sentence what Bite the Ballot is?
A movement to empower young people.
A movement to empower young people. Right.
Come in, sit down.
So Bite the Ballot, which is a movement to empower young people, is about to do a workshop, chat, discussion, questions and answers.
All are welcome, the more the merrier.
We're joining.
Occupy democracy. We're here to challenge what goes on in those buildings over there. If you're fed up with the wars, if you're fed up with the social cleansing, if you're fed up with the privatization of services, if you're fed up with the way things are, come and join Occupy democracy. All are welcome, all are welcome. Occupy democracy. Let's all chat together. Occupy democracy. Occupy democracy. Occupy democracy! 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 You then showed us a lovely house. All about it. Let's change it. Let's change it. No more empire. Change the form of democracy. Occupy democracy. Occupy democracy.
Right, Ages. You there?
Hello, mate.
Hi, up. Are you playing games? Cool. Cool. So yeah, well, that was that weird, that strange day when I cut half my hair off, wasn't it? The footage of that's still out there, you know. It's just it was embarrassing, but I think it was. It wasn't embarrassing. Actually, fuck it. I need that moment needed to happen. Of having a mental breakdown, really. But from break.
So, I remember that. I remember that day quite vividly. I remember I got home. I remember that was it.
Well, it's weird. I got carted off in a cab bus. I think someone in the Occupy movement helped me out, basically.
Oh yeah, because I was like.
Because it was fucking weird. I just remember all the some journalists talking to me and all this. And I was just like, I had no idea what's going on. We got kettled, didn't we? Basically.
Yeah, man.
We got kettled off, which happens quite frequently. That's how they often control protests, as they kettle people. I mean, that was the day the Tories got re-elected, and yeah, we can go into that now if you want.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I mean, I've been struggling a lot over the last few years because, as you know, I got bipolar disorder, and it's been a real struggle, like to get like just support really. And like I found myself in a position now where I finally got my ESA, but then I need to get tested again soon, and they have the Atos, which control that's like a private company, and they control. What are you playing, by the way?
Oh, it's called Zombie. It's it's like set in London.
Yeah.
And it's a British zombie apocalypse.
Is it on Steam?
Yeah, man. I got it the other day. I highly recommend it. I found
cool.
They don't really.
Punk's not dead. Punk's not dead.
Yeah, man, you can customise.
Fucking yes, mate.
Your baseball
But it's not dead. We're keeping it alive right now. But Punk will never die. Punk will never die. Punk is DIY, do it yourself.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's that mindset, isn't it?
And that, I mean, like, you know, I've tried to keep that alive all my life, really.
Is it?
Yeah, man. Just like, you know, the Electric Picture House Co-op I founded and all that. But it's not. This isn't about me. It's about politics. So it's a Tory party. I mean, the Tories at the minute. I mean, we got Brexit, which is this thing incredibly depressing. I mean, like I voted Remain. I can't remember. Did you vote Remain or Leave? I can't remember. Or did you abstain?
I voted Leave, right? And these are my reasons I voted Leave. Because I looked into, I don't know if you knew, years ago, I went to like this convention, like the Bilderberg convention.
Yeah.
You know about Bilderberg.
Yeah, the global. Yeah.
And like, I went to that, and like that whole evening, day, weekend, I was there. The whole, like, most of it was quite interesting, and like, you know, there were a lot of like quite interesting characters there. You can imagine, like David Icke, Alex Jones. Do you know what I mean? Them type of like. But apparently they're controlled opposition, but nonetheless, I went along to that. I saw them and all that. But even that, like, one of the evenings I went there, it just really freaked me out actually. Like, just like the whole idea that you know, you got these world leaders at a hotel and you had all this like high security and stuff like that.
Well, it's the powerful trying to protect themselves, I guess.
Yeah.
But then the thing is with Alex Jones is, I mean, I was never really, well, you already know this because I've told you before. I was never really a fan of Alex Jones. I think his whole politics is a politics of fear. His entire, I think, yeah. I mean, like even that. Cause, I mean, you know, he's allied himself with Trump. He's basically he is aligned with Trump in the, and you know, obviously American elections. In the American elections, basically, like Bill Hicks said, you had a choice of shit or shit. Both sides of both left and the right in that election were just shit choices.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally we would have had a Bernie Sanders as a candidate, and you know, on the Democratic side, but that kind of got squished. Any kind of genuine like revolutionary force seems to always get squished by the powers that be, which is just depressing. And like, you know, Jones has aligned himself with Trump. I mean, he was very against Hillary. Hillary would have been probably pretty bad as well, I think, as a leader. She would have, I don't think it. But yeah, it's just a choice of shit and shit. At least Bernie Sanders was talking about education, the middle classes, trying to get prosperity back for the youth of America, which I think Jeremy Corbyn's that hope still, but he needs to, I think, strengthen his line, I think, on some things. I mean, in terms of like I've got a few friends who voted Leave, and I'm annoyed about Brexit, but I don't make it personal. I don't think that anyone who's voted Leave is an idiot or anything. I think they were just fooled. Like, there's a whole thing about like the NHS giving more money to the NHS and stuff, and that was all a false promise. And
why was my reason? Oh, that was it. Because I remember this, and I don't know. I'll send you the link if you can't find it, because I reckon you could throw this in the podcast because it's quite funny. But also, I watched it and it really shook me up at the time, because I think I was like 19 at the time. I didn't know like which way to take, like, basically Alex Jones, right? He went on BBC Politics, like Sunday Politics, to talk about the Bilderberg Convention, right?
Yeah.
And like the whole, like the show, like felt like they were just undermining him. And as a viewer, I felt like Alex Jones was like the protagonist trying to get his view across. And these people were all
trying to shut him down.
Yeah,
I know, I've seen that clip,
And I was watching it and I was like, why are they doing that? And it's when he goes off on one and starts shouting, "Liberty is rising." Oh, you gotta find it. Do you know what I mean? He just starts shouting.
I've seen it. I've seen it before, and I mean, like, I agree that liberty is an important. Well, liberty is key.
It was what he said beforehand, and it resonated me when the vote came up because I completely forgot about it. But I remember him saying at the beginning that the European Union was founded and created by the Bilderberg Group, or they had a big influence on it. And at the time, I'm thinking these people are all like evil and crazy and blah blah blah. Like, you know, I'm thinking the worst.
Yeah.
So I think it might have been an impulse thing from that, and I completely just
a lot of people
were
the same.
The facts. It was like no one really knows.
Well, I mean, I mean, you know, like I'm not an expert on the EU.
Hasn't affected my life, so I don't really.
Well, you know, I mean, like the worry is now that obviously Europe. Well, the EU is like it's just an economic. Well, it's an economic union, really. It's just about it's for trade. It's a trade thing, really.
Yeah.
But it does help with stability somewhat economically. That's the whole thing of that's the worry. That's the reason I voted Remain, is because I'm like, I don't want our economy to get fucked. It's already fucked enough as it is.
Yeah.
So I voted for economic reasons. Because the fact is, like I was actually at work. I was working at the time in an office, and like everybody I was working with there was like, when it happened, they were just like, "Yep, we're fucked."
Was it?
We're fucked. Yeah, I was working for a consultancy company to deal with shopping malls and stuff. It was a pretty boring job. I only was there for 8 months. But
did they like say it with like
yeah, they're just like, well, no,
like sincere, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, they basically they said that they.
yeah.
I'm not going to say who were personally, but like they just said, "Oh, they're all idiots. Yeah. Why have they done this? Why have they voted for why they voted to leave, and like why are they so gullible to do that?"
Yeah.
And in moments of anger, I feel that as well sometimes.
But doesn't it always just go back to that divide and conquer? I find it's like, I felt like the whole Brexit.
Sadly so.
Like,
I mean, like, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that whoever's got control of the media, really, like, so, which isn't globalist, it's not Jews, it's not anything like that. It's what it is.
Yeah.
The rich and the powerful. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And like saying it's Jews is scapegoating. Saying it's globalists is probably closer to the truth, I suppose, in terms of like rich corporate power and rich corporate groups and entities. The 1% really has been defined by the Occupy movement. But I mean, with any political discourse, as soon as you start blaming one group, whether it be religious or whatever, it becomes very like that's where divide and conquer starts. That's where the whole sickness of that starts. And then
blame, do you think?
Well, yeah, like I mean, if you look at it historically, like who did Hitler blame? The Jews, the international bankers, all the rest of it. He lined up Judaism and Jews with like stealing all our money, and like obviously Germany had been through 2 world wars, so they were pretty battered at that point, and the German people, I guess, wanted a figure of like a lot of the time you get like these strong man figures come up, basically, which I kind of might nicely segment into next, but we should talk a bit about feminism, I suppose, in terms of how feminism, women and power, and how that relates to political struggle, I suppose. So I'll let you lead on that. I can come in with some.
Well, like feminism, I find it like really interesting because someone like describes it like man is very kind of like strategic, and women are kind of very kind of
empathetic.
Or is it like men are kind of like straight lines, where women are kind of like curvy and can do circles and all that?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the mindset, like men are kind of like A to B, whereas women kind of don't do A to B, they do like, it's kind of like
A, B, C, and D.
I'm trying to think of a really good metaphor. Do you know what I mean for like to describe?
Well, I mean, like if men do A, B, C, and D, which is like a square, if you want to use it in that analogy, then women do A to B as a circle, I suppose, which is a strange analogy. But like if you imagine two semicircles, then and then they join A to B joins the circle. So which. This is a generalisation, but men on the whole are generally more left-brained, I suppose, as in logical focused, I suppose, whereas women are more creatively emotional.
Yeah.
Now they try and come up. Terence McKenna talks about this basically, about how there's a dominator culture basically. The dominator culture is a product of extreme interpretations of what masculinity should be, whereas what's it called? He calls it like cooperative culture or something like that in his book, about how women basically we evolved to be tribes basically, but going back a while ago, and but women were the glue that held those tribes together. Women have babies for a start, so they have to do they're responsible literally for our survival as a species. And so because of that they have a deeper empathetic nature, because that's just a natural product of being a female, is that you have a natural motherly instinct, basically, is what I'm talking about a natural propensity to care for people, which men have as well, obviously, but it's something that you have to really work on in yourself. Like I've been doing it myself for a while. Like I in my darker moments, like my depressions, I have a tendency to kind of a destructive tendency in terms of ideas, but it can become quite negative to myself and others sometimes when that happens. So that's something I've been really working on myself, to just become more in touch basically with my nurturing side, my female side, if you want to call it that. Actually, I think that's a positive thing that men should do, and I think
I've been trying to do that. Definitely been trying to do it. I felt when I was growing my hair, because I felt like I was trying to get in tune with that side of it, because I did find that when you have long hair, bloody hell, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare to just look after and all the rest of it. And it even changes your sleep pattern, like the way you sleep, not in a kind of like your sleep pattern so much, but just the fact that it's just there always in your face. You wake up and it's like, oh, sorry, it's all in your face kind of thing. So to have that for a number of years is kind of like, you get used to it, but you're just kind of like,
well, I mean, it's like a gift. It's a gift, really, having that natural kind of. I mean, you've kind of got that very straight kind of hair. I've kind of got those natural curls, and you just got to I mean, you've got to, and sometimes some stupid men, usually bald, kind of angry men, say, well, I mean, I don't know. That's a bit of a generalisation. Actually, it's a mass generalisation. Sorry, it's only bald, but a lot of angry kind of.
I know what
men
you mean.
can sometimes be like, you look like a girl, you stupid girly man, and all the rest of it. I'm just imagining Arnold Schwarzenegger in a kind of testosterone kind of fuel.
Literally, yeah.
But the kind of men that usually say that.
I think that's why I did it in a kind of weird way, because I kind of
there's
that weird stigma, and I kind of thought, I can get away with that, because for me it was kind of not to say I was putting on a costume, so to speak, but for me it was kind of it didn't really bother me. Do you know what I mean? So it felt like if it wound someone up, I just kind of thought that really is like a mirror on them. I just kind of thought.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just go to a more serious point actually. Women in power. So obviously, because Hillary didn't win, that would have been a paradigm shifting moment in American history if she had won, because obviously it would have been the first woman president. But then, do you think? Well, I'm putting this out there. I don't know the answer to this. Do you think that would have been tokenistic because she wasn't she wasn't really a good enough leader, or do you think it would have been a positive step?
For me personally, I knew she was like, I know she's kind of, I think she's corrupt as far as I know. Well, a lot of them are.
Yeah.
But I would have thought, it would have been interesting to see like the first female. It's weird how I got hung up on that, the first female president.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, why would I be like hung up on that? But it's kind of like, that's history. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That will be in the that's in the history books. It only happens once, them kind of things.
Yeah.
And it,
I mean, like, I think maybe.
And I kind of think it's a bit weird. We still actually haven't, in the time we live, had a female president.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Well, it is very strange. I mean, because, you know, women are basically 50% or more of the, well, pretty much 50% of the world population. I think there's more women than men. I can't remember what they're more up to now. There's more men than women, I think. But anyway, doesn't matter.
Oh, is it?
I think I'm not sure actually.
I'm sure the ratio. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's forever changing, but very mildly, because it's life, isn't it? Yeah.
So I mean, there's obviously, the one form of feminism thinks that when you just need to get more women's positions of power through, basically actually what it boils down to is forgetting the gender and just basing it on their actual abilities, which I think is probably the way forward. It's like, instead of saying, oh, we need to get exactly like 50-50, boards of control and, CEOs and stuff like that. I think I kind of find that kind of a bit patronising, to be honest. It's like, we're going to have to dictate that we have 50%. You need checks in place, obviously, for sexism and like sexual harassment, which is especially pertinent given what's happened in Hollywood recently with what's that guy's name? The fucking weirdo. What's his name again? The guy, the producer guy who was basically just like, to women, he was basically just saying.
That guy. Harvey
Weinstein, wasn't it, or something?
Something like that.
But
you know what? I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah, I didn't either. But like, I mean, you just find out about it, and he's like,
these people come out of the woodwork. Well, I say people.
Well, it's weird, very strange. Like,
these characters,
yeah, I mean, like, and he basically was saying to these women, he's like, you can't, you will not have, he's got a position, well, as a man in a position of power, basically, he was using that power in a very abusive way, really. Like, he would just, basically just saying, have sex with me or you won't get a role in this film, or you won't get, which is fucked. That's like an unhealthy dynamic. That's not how sex works. You don't say to someone in sex, you don't say to someone, do this or you won't get this. That's very unhealthy. Sex is about
exactly.
Being together and
yeah.
I mean, essentially, it's kind of like prostitution and hot.
Yeah, and it's prostitution, exploitation. It's probably under abuse as well. Yeah, there's probably a whole can of things it violates. But then again, I would say I'm pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? I'd say I'd be pretty. That's it. I'd say I'd be pretty naive.
Yeah.
To think that Hollywood was all just above board.
Yeah.
Because you got the adult industry, and I just kind of think, so I'm sure that crosses over people wanting parts in films, and it's like Didn't Team America make a joke of it? That guy getting in the limo, that puppet. That puppet.
Oh yeah, he goes suck my dick or something, doesn't he?
Yeah. So it's like they would like a South Park. And all these, it's like everyone kind of knows.
Well, that's why I love South Park so much, because they kind of hold a mirror up to America, and they're always on point with it as well. Like they hold a mirror up to the America, and they're both libertarians actually, so they're not like, they don't really. I guess they vote for the Libertarian Party in America, who I don't fully identify with libertarianism in America, but I identify with the core principle, which is that liberty is an important fundamental right to maintain for the individual, basically individuals, as it were, because I think that is important. I think we do need to, as soon as you lose the right to your own autonomy, your own individual self, your own individual right of expression, we might as well just all get into those cages and say, yep, tell us what to do, great leader, whether it be left or right, whether it be Mao or fucking Hitler. You might as well just give up at that point, because as soon as you forego your rights and you say, well, I shouldn't have any rights and I don't need rights. That relates a lot actually to, because obviously human rights law, a lot of that was kind of developed with the EU, or like, more modern terms of it, human rights legislation, I think, or was like implemented by the EU. Like a lot of people had complaints about, they thought it was going too far, and that, like I've even had arguments with family members about this, like about how I'm not going to go into who, but like I used to have a lot of arguments with someone about how she would say, well, prisoners should have no rights, and I was like, prisoners have to have basic protective rights. You can't say just because someone's in prison they've done wrong that they have no rights. They still have rights.
Yeah.
As an overall thing, it's just a framework. It's a framework for because if you just make the individual into a nothing, even if they have done something wrong. If they've done something wrong, they're in prison. They're doing their time. The whole point of going into prison is that to reformation of yourself. And yeah, I mean you have to still give prisoners rights, otherwise the prison system can just do whatever it wants to those people. Mm-hmm. Take that to its logical extreme. I mean, I think in the Soviet Union it got pretty bad, where prisoners had no rights. They were just not even proper trials sometimes, and they were just, because you had a lot of, like I said, you had a lot of anarchist thinkers who were locked up for speaking out against the state, and as soon as that happens, you've made it becomes a police state, and you've got people who are basically, we need those rights in place, otherwise we might as well just give up on being human beings.
Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from, mate. Yeah.
And and then even taking that to a logical, horrible conclusion, the Jews in the Holocaust.
Oh, right,
and not to mention the gays, gypsies, LGBT people, artists, intellectuals, all thrown in the ovens, man. So as soon as
it's because for me, I try to keep myself so far removed from it, because I feel like I get too emotional. About it.
Well, no, I do. I mean, it's
six. What's the figure? 6
million. 6 million.
Souls.
And then you have people who try and deny that ever happened.
Yeah, and I think that's very interesting, because I haven't looked into that's one.
It's not worth looking into, really, because they're just. I mean, the guy, one of the key proponents of that idea is David Iving, I think. He's like he's a stupid. He says that it was all faked. It's bollocks.
Really?
So you can go to Auschwitz. The fucking death camps are still there. You've got all the footage. There was the Eichmann trials where Eichmann, who was a high-ranking Nazi, went on trial for what he did, because he was one of the administrators in one of the big camps, and it fucking happened. And I hate it when people bring it up and say it didn't happen, because it's just like, shut up.
Yeah, because it's almost like, it's just like...
It's horrendous. I mean, it was like, we can't even barely imagine. And like the whole thing of that, with that, related to the idea of what we're saying about having human rights, as soon as you turn human beings into, Untermensch, as the Germans would have called the Jews at that time, and all the other gay people and artists, intellectual, whatever, they call them Untermensch, which means unperson. It basically means unperson, or not a person. It means underperson, technically, but you dehumanize people that way, and then as soon as you do that, a Nazi officer can say, I was just following orders. That isn't a person anyway. As soon as you do that...
It's just... Yeah. It's... Because I sometimes just count my blessings that aren't fortunate enough to be where I am today, and like the situation I'm in today. Do you know what I mean? Just the security, the food.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, we're cozy in our middle class kind of environment, aren't we? I mean, we're lucky to come from a middle class environment where we've been provided for a lot, and due to that fact, we don't have to worry too much about stuff. I mean, I'd say that's changing a bit now, because like even We're both middle class, right? You mean your parents' house at the minute, yeah?
Oh yeah.
I'm you know I've was at my parents' house and have moved into a mate's house now. We're all kind of none of us are really like our parents would have done. None of us have got our own places. None of us have. We're all struggling like still. So like I mean, the class definitions have changed so much now.
Yeah.
So we're still. I mean, I kind of define myself as working middle class. I think really. I mean, I come from middle class background, but I work to try and work really hard just to try and scrape by.
I know what you mean. I'd probably have to, and that's the thing. I hate even putting like the whole class thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, like ideally, we'd have no class system really, and we would just be equal as the socialist theory goes. You know, obviously you can critique that. I mean, George Orwell did a pretty good job of it in Animal Farm, but that was a very specific implementation, i.e. the USSR.
Yeah.
I mean, Orwell himself was actually a democratic socialist as well. He was socialist for most of his life.
Was he?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of he fought in the Spanish Civil War. He was the homage to Catalonia, which I need to read still. Actually, is an account of his fighting in the Spanish Civil War, where you had the Republic and the Franco's fascism, basically. But that was an interesting conflict. It's not what I'm looking into it at the minute, actually, trying to find out more about it. I know someone who had family that were in that conflict, actually. A good friend.
Really?
Yeah. A long time ago now, but yeah. And he's like very extremely liberal, quite socialist himself, so it's very, it's a difficult history. A very difficult history in Spain. But I mean,
it's always that. I always even you look around at people on the street and stuff like that, and it's kind of that. I'm sure a fair few of them have lived through some kind of, not to say traumatic, but some kind of oh bloody hell, this is reality kind of moment, because of where they live, and or do you know what I mean? Or just, because it all trickles down, doesn't it? Like, everyone getting blue passports now because of the Brexit thing. Which, what does that mean? Just that people can't work in parts of Europe?
Is that, is that it? I mean, because that's worrying, because, like, my passport, because I'm hoping to visit Russia soon, so I hope it doesn't affect that too much. I guess it won't, because they're not a member of the EU, but still.
Because I have no idea. It's just I don't know where I heard that. It's probably
they're gonna have to write. Well, I don't know actually, because the blue passports are gonna. I mean, I've heard about it, but I've not really read into it that much recently, to be honest. I'm kind of looking to the past at the minute for, just to figure out how can we not have Donald Trump in power? Basically, is why I'm looking back in the past. And then on the other side, I mean, in the east, you've got Putin as well.
Do you think though, because with the whole Trump thing, do you think he's dangerous in terms of a political
his language is
his body language?
The way that he discourses with he's not a statesman at all. He's very impulsive. That's the main thing that scares me about him. He's impulsive. He's misogynistic. He's grabbing by the pussy kind of whole comment thing.
Yeah.
He just basically just assumes that he can have women all the time, and he's a fucking 65-something-year-old man with orange hair, and he's orange face, and he's just disgusting, really. I mean, he's just I don't really see what new ideas he's repealed net neutrality for a start in America. Fuck him for that. Fuck him. He's a fucking dickhead. Net neutrality is really important for maintaining a free and open internet, basically, and making it so that the internet remains, like a free market, really. So in terms of the marketplace of ideas.
Really,
So what repealing net neutrality will do is make it so that it hands the power from the people to companies, big companies. That's fucked. And I was doing a lot of Twitter activism on it, and a lot of trying to raise awareness on social media, but a lot of people were. I've got on my website, Defend the Internet Defence Force. I'm a member of that. And
have you?
Yeah. It's on my Noir Vortex website. They've got Internet Defence Force on there, straight on there.
How does that work out?
Oh, basically, like it on the website, it pops up with a notification saying this is happening. It doesn't anymore because it's already been repealed, but yeah. Oh, whoa, zombie.
Oh no, yeah, one's popped up. Hang on, I'll just get rid of it. It's a police officer.
It looks really realistic, actually, the graphics.
It was a police, I should say it was.
Yeah, it's
It's not going down. Ooh, ooh. Ooh. Oh, I missed it. Hang on. Oh. Alright, he's done.
Yeah, I'm going to download this game.
He dropped.
You should get have you got a Mac? Are you on Mac? Are you on Mac or you're on Xbox at the minute?
This is on. You can get this on PC.
Yeah.
I think through Steam. And,
Yeah.
This is on Xbox One.
Cool. I was going to say because I've been recording games through OBS a lot at the minute, which is the software I'm using to record this, and that's really cool actually. Phil, you can get like really good, like frame rate capture and like all that. It's really good. So I was just saying. Oh, your video's dropped. Hello. Hello. Oh, it's dropped out. Hello. I've lost you, Jez.